Superman is directed by James Gunn. This is the first installment into the new DC universe, and I had very high expectations for this, particularly since James Gunn was directing and the fact that he was basically the head of the studio. It's like if Kevin Feige directed Iron Man. And I trust James Gunn as a filmmaker because of how much I love the Guardians films, how much I really like the Suicide Squad, even his other films. Super, I love that. And I legitimately think that Peacemaker is low-key his best work. So I was very, very looking forward to see what he can do with a universe and basically have complete creative control. But it also raised the bar really, really high for me because I really was in the mindset of, if something doesn't work in this movie, it's really all eyes on him because there's no studio notes you can blame. There's no really anything. I mean, maybe there's stuff that you can blame onto David Zaslav. Maybe there is stuff I might blame on this review, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of this falls onto James Gunn's shoulders if I did about the elements that I didn't like more than any other of his films before. And this was my most anticipated movie of the year. And so, admittedly, in a year where there for me wasn't that much to look forward to, but if I had to pick one, this was the movie I was looking forward to the most. What did I think? I saw this movie on Tuesday. I went to the Amazon Early Access screening, and when I first walked out, I liked it. In fact, I would go as far to say I really liked it, but part of me was slightly disappointed. And then I sat with the movie and I rewatched it again tonight. Honestly, now I kind of feel that energy that I wanted to feel when I watched it Tuesday night. Now, Tuesday night, maybe when I saw it, I don't want to say my expectations were too high because the internet chatter of this movie honestly drained me so much. I didn't really have any expectations going in. But this is a movie that really, really benefits from a rewatch because this movie hits the ground running and it doesn't necessarily feel like first installment into the universe. It's very much inserting you into the middle of events because it doesn't want to explain Superman's origin, but simultaneously it's inserting you into the middle of events within this universe, but it's also at the end of the day the first movie into this universe. And so there is a lot of exposition in this movie that really, really shocked me that it was written the way it was, particularly since James Gunn wrote this. There's some, in my opinion, I think the worst scene of the movie is right when Lex Luthor, as you see in the film, he breaks into Superman's ice thing. I'm sorry, I don't know the keywords to any of this crap, but I am a so-called superhero nerd, but whatever. He broke into the Superman ice thing, and he is just full out explaining every ounce of his motivation out loud, and that was honestly one of the most bothersome scenes of the movie because it was so expository. And I understand that this is a movie for kids, and sometimes they're not always going to pick up on the little details, but I was really, really concerned during that scene because, I knew this movie was going to be introducing a lot of characters, and if every single character was going to be introduced and we're not going to see their arc play out, that we're just going to catch them in the middle of it and see them explain it, then go throughout it. That was one concern I had throughout the film, but thankfully that's really the only scene that did something like that. The movie also introduces the Justice Gang, which is Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. And honestly, the first time I watched it, and honestly this most recent time, I do kind of question whether including them was necessary for the movie. I understand why it's necessary for the universe, and Mr. Terrific, I would say, is the only one of those three that completely justify their roles. Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner really feel like they're just there because they exist and they don't want to introduce them later and make them feel like, hey, where were they when this happened? So that makes sense. And also there's this one moment, and if I'm getting all my complaints out of the way, there's this one moment in the third act that is set up. You see it in the trailer, and it is, I don't want to spoil this, but I'll just say there's this one moment that the movie sets up, and it creates for a really, really powerful moment for the film, and it builds up to something, and I really feel like for that moment in the film, and I'll just say it involves the scene where the little kid's chanting on Superman. I felt like it set up something, but with the way that the events played out, it had me a little bit disappointed with the way that they set it up. It gave me false expectations for emotional payoff that didn't necessarily happen the way I wanted it to for a Superman film. That's my way of dancing around that. But yeah. And as for last complaints, I thought the visuals at moments were a little wonky, particularly in this void area, this what they call not a like a split universe or something like that, or a parallel. I don't know, some type of in between dimension thing that they lock Superman away in. You see it in the trailer, and it just honestly looked pretty ugly to me. I thought it was a very blah looking background, and honestly the way that they had it color graded in the teaser trailer looked a whole lot better than what they went with in the final cut, and I kind of wish they just, kind of stayed off the internet, because I felt like that was the internet that made him change that, because I really liked the way that shot looked in the teaser, but then I saw it in the final cut, and it was just so great and muddled, and we spend a lot of time in that part of the film. So it was very disappointing to see such a large chunk of this film in such a blah looking area. But I know a lot of people were complaining about, like, and so when I started complaining about the visuals, that's what I mean, because I know a lot of people were complaining about the camera work. I really like the camera work. And now I'm going to get into what I really liked about this film. I really liked the spirit of this film. I loved the Superman whimsical child that's deep down in this iconic hero. That's something that Henry Cavill kind of completely stripped away from Superman. And I understand what they were doing with that project, but this is the first time in a modern superhero film where I've seen Superman actually feel like what Superman actually is in the Superman that people described. Because yes, I've seen the 1978 film, but I don't connect with that because that's not of my time. Watching this, I really felt like I was seeing what everyone was describing as Superman, because I know Henry Cavill's version is much, much different than comic book had set up with the comic book material offers. So I was very, very excited and happy to see David Corenswet honestly just completely understand what makes this character tick. And even though he doesn't spend a lot of the movie as Clark Kent, the very few scenes that we do get, he really seemed to understand that as well. And Rachel, I don't remember her last name, her and David Corenswet, oh my god, their chemistry on screen is honestly some of the most electric chemistry I maybe ever seen in a film. And I know you're going to start commenting down in the comments, well, watch more movies. No, I'm being so dead serious. I've seen 1,000+ movies, people. Literally, watching them on screen made me concerned for their spouses because of how much they were selling it. Honestly, all of my favorite scenes of this movie are with them too. If it got one thing right, if I had to ask Jonathan, what did Superman 2025 get right most? My answer would be the Superman and Lois dynamic and relationship. All of my favorite scenes are with them. The recorder scene that at the very beginning of the film, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. A scene with them at the very, very end is just my favorite moments of the film. Like, sincerely, they just got them right. The action sequences in this movie, yeah, this is a superhero, this is an action movie. I thought that was good. It was entertaining throughout. I wouldn't sit down and say it's the best James Gunn action film, because in fact, I would honestly say that I think like every Guardians movie has an action sequence that beats every action sequence in this film. And the same thing goes for the Suicide Squad. I thought this movie still had good action, but I would say I felt like I was much more invested with the characters this time around rather than I was the action. But that's what, in all honesty, makes me give the edge to the Guardians films overall, if someone asked me for personal preference, because I think Guardians absolutely understands this characters, absolutely understands its emotions, but also gives some really awesome action at the same time. And not to say that the action in this movie is bad, but maybe because it's more CGI heavy because of the nature of the film, but I really, really don't see myself looking back at this film and thinking about particular action sequences. I think myself thinking about particular moments that really just scream this hero, because I am so glad that James Gunn really, really, kept in mind that superheroes are about saving people, so looking out for the little guy. That's basically what everything Superman is. There's a literal moment in this movie where Superman saves a squirrel. Like, little moments like that is what makes me love this film. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned Crypto. The best dog on film I've ever seen. Sincerely, the most dog-accurate dog I have seen in a movie. I have 3 German Shepherds, and I saw a little bit of each one of my dogs in Crypto, and I just couldn't get enough of him. I can't believe I haven't talked about Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult, he killed it. Absolutely killed it. He really just had that loser energy that I think he needed to bring to it. And I know that was a tough word. Sorry, Nicholas Hoult, if you're listening to this. I didn't mean it that way. What I mean is that Lex Luthor, at the end of the day, is a nerd. And Lex Luthor, at the end of the day, is a brainiac. And I just feel like he really tries to be cool. And he does a really good job at looking cool and seeming cool and looking like he has these super hot girlfriends following him around. But at the end of the day, you can still kind of see the weird nerd in him. Nicholas Hoult lets that out in the right moments, just perfectly, to the point where it's not too annoying or unbelievable for his character to be followed the way that it is. Like, he sincerely got that right mix of what I think Lex Luthor needed to be for this film. And I just really am so happy that all of the actors in this film, particularly the main 3 of Superman, Lois, and Lex, just really understood the characters that they were playing, because so many people look up to these characters and love these characters, and James Gunn absolutely nailed it when it comes to nailing these characters and making you care about them. And I am very, very excited to see what what James Gunn does with the rest of this universe. On second watch, I am very happy with this movie. It's not perfect. I think it had a fair share of issues, in my opinion. I think this movie was most of all kind of overstuffed, and you really feel that on first watch, but on second watch, I got a lot more out of it, and it really didn't feel like issues to me anymore. It's just a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, in my opinion, on first viewing when it comes to everything. It's still a good movie on first viewing. It's still a really fun movie on first viewing, but second viewing is where I really had a lot of fun with it and really felt that energy of what everybody else was feeling in the initial set of reviews. So yeah, I'm going to give Superman, I'm not going to change my score because I still think it's the same quality of film, I just enjoyed it more on second watch. I'm going to give Superman an 8.3 out of 10. Comment down below what you guys thought of Superman. Did you love it? Did you hate it? If you're a Zack Snyder fan, you can just go ahead and dislike this video. Please, I want you to. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.